Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Raw Politics. They say that most of the time, your enemy is someone who knows you very well, knows your weaknesses, knows your patterns, and above all, close to you. And they always appear as if they are fighting for you. It takes a lot of due diligence and a lot of time in most cases, and regrettably so, to realize that the person who was after you, the person who was going to destroy you, was actually a close ally, or what you thought was a close ally. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what is happening to the Kikuyu nation. The Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, the former deputy president, has, for some very funny reasons, decided to sacrifice the community at the altar of personal ambitions. So in this video, I will share with you how it started, and then we will go into what Rigathi is doing specifically that is really working against the Kikuyu nation. If that is something you're interested in, continue watching. And if you're watching this channel for the first time, take a second, subscribe so that you don't miss our subsequent videos. Ladies and gentlemen, Rigathi Gachagua rose to fame by doing what he is currently doing. The problem is people did not pay attention. And it is a mistake that some politicians will really regret. You see, Rigathi's political background is so brief. He came to the limelight when his brother was ill. It is said that during that time, he literally managed Nyeri, after which he went and vied for the Madeira seat and won. As a first-term MP, I quote his exact words, nobody knew him beyond Nyeri. In one interview, he was saying President Ruto has given them an opportunity to be known countrywide. And what he meant in essence is that during the period between 2018 and 2022, when the handshake happened and Mount Kenya rebelled with Uhuru for bringing Raila on board, Rigathi saw an opportunity. You see, before then, he was a nobody. He was some first-term MP. In Madeira, very few people even knew where Madeira was. But then he found his voice in criticizing Uhuru Kenyatta. And his criticism was different from other Kikuyu leaders because he would really go personal. You remember the famous speech he gave where he said he's the one who picked Uhuru Kenyatta from a bar. He is the one who cleansed Uhuru Kenyatta and made him president. He then went ahead and asked Uhuru Kenyatta not to kill him the way Uhuru Kenyatta's father killed J.M. Kariuki. These were serious allegations, especially being said to a Kikuyu mass against a Kikuyu kingpin then, because Uhuru was the Kikuyu leader by the virtue of being president for a second term and coming from the community. Rigathi Gachagua was saying all this with a lot of conviction. I would have shared the video, but most of the time I do not prefer sharing clips because of issues of copyright and so on and so forth. But it is something that is publicly available. You can search where Rigathi Gachagua was castigating Uhuru Kenyatta, claiming that Uhuru Kenyatta was planning to kill him and to kill his kids. And so he asked him not to do what his father did to J.M. Kariuki. These were serious allegations, and it is something Uhuru Kenyatta did not take lightly because during that period, the period between 2018 and 2022, Rigathi was really persecuted. He would be arrested and held until Monday. He would be arrested sometime very early in the morning, even before he would put on something. So these humiliations from the powerful president, and considering Rigathi was now an underdog, endeared people to him. Within a short time, Rigathi gained national prominence. People started to know who this Madeira MP was, who was very vocal and anti-Uhuru, considering he was also said to have been Uhuru's PA. So people really took seriously what he said against Uhuru Kenyatta. And he was never kind to him. But people did not learn from that because it was taken as if it was just some politician making ridiculous allegations. But that would be Rigathi's modus operandi. That would be, unfortunately, that would be Rigathi's mode of operation. If he differs with you, he would say things that are outrageous. He could accuse you of anything that he wishes to say. So Uhuru Kenyatta did not like him, but this, like I said, endeared him to the UDA masses, and people started saying, oh, this is a very powerful leader, we should consider him. And so when William Ruto was picking his running mate, Rigathi Gachagua had reached the level where he was being considered as one of the candidates. Yes, alongside the likes of Ndini Nyoro, the likes of Kindiki Kithure, the likes of Moses Kuria and others, Rigathi Gachagua was being considered as one of the running mates. Just a first-time MP. How did he rise to prominence? I told you, by making ridiculous or making very chilling allegations against Uhuru Kenyatta. Like I said, I would give you an history of how we got ourselves where we are before we go into the specifics of what Rigathi is doing currently that is working against the Kikuyu community. You see, on the inauguration day, the day Rigathi Gachagua was being sworn into office as the Deputy President of the Republic, he did not embrace the reconciliatory tone that people do take after a fiercely contested election like the 2022 election. Remember, the 2022 election was a 50-50 election which pit the outgoing president and the opposition leader against his own deputy. So the country was literally divided. And that is why when William Ruto spoke, he had a reconciliatory message. In fact, on that same day, William Ruto made his first appointment, which was to appoint Uhuru Kenyatta to continue as a peace envoy in the DRC and Ethiopia. But Rigathi was not of that kind. And because he already had the ambitions of taking over from Uhuru Kenyatta, Rigathi did not embrace the reconciliatory tone when giving his maiden speech as the deputy president. What he did was to really tear into Uhuru Kenyatta in front of the world, because we had also invited guests from other countries. He tore into Uhuru Kenyatta in ways you've never seen. After doing that, that was not all. Rigathi was very antagonistic towards Uhuru Kenyatta. He would, after being sworn in as the deputy president, he would tell people that Uhuru Kenyatta was overseeing the looting of billions. Money was being carried from Wilson Airport to some secret houses in Karen. It was a lot of things that he said. This worked very well with the UDA audience and the Kenya Kwanza audience, because Uhuru Kenyatta, even though they had lost election, looked like he did not recognize William Ruto, even though he had handed over peacefully, as he said, but he still stuck that Raila Odinga was his leader. So in short, I don't recognize Ruto's presidency. And so Rigathi took it personal that Uhuru was not recognizing them, and it became very chaotic between him and Uhuru. I wish I could have the time to go through all the clips of the things Rigathi said against Uhuru Kenyatta, but there is a pattern here. When Rigathi picks on you as an opponent or a threat to his ambition of being the Kikuyu kingpin, there is nothing he can't say about you. And there is nothing he can't tell the people of the mountain about you. And he says this with a lot of conviction. So, moving forward, we are into 2023. Around March, Azimio, led by Raila Odinga, took Kenyans to the streets. And as usual, these demos turned violent, and easily became a Luo affair because most of the people who were on the street were from Mathare, from Kibra, places that are dominated by Luos, and of course in Kisumu and Migori. So technically, it became a Luo demonstration. That is the nature of demonstrations in Kenya. Within a short time, it's very easy to know where a majority of the demonstrators are coming from. Like the ones we have calling themselves the Gen Zs are just people from Kiambu mostly, Kikuyus mostly, rebelling with Ruto, which, like I said, there's nothing wrong with it. But it's always painted as if it is the entire nation rebelling with Ruto. But I digress. So when these demos happened, Rigathi took this opportunity to promise that Raila was going to be crushed once for all. And he believed that so many clips. You just go to TikTok or where you or whichever platform, you'll find so many clips of Rigathi saying demos are not allowed and saying how he will deal with demonstrators and supporting the police for actually using force against demonstrators. The same things that he is now against. He was really praising the police then and even said that they will protect the police. They should deal with these people mercilessly. According to Rigathi, Raila was not to be given another chance to reinvent himself. And this, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand, is the beginning of the differences between William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua. That was as early as 2023 March, when the first demo occurred. So where was the difference? Because remember, President Ruto was also not in support of these demos. There was a time he even said enough is enough. But there is one thing that was clearly different in their approach. While Rigathi insisted that Raila and his supporters had to be crushed using the state power, William Ruto realized very quickly that that was working against him. Remember, he just won the election narrowly. And as such, it meant the country was divided 50-50. And so even if you were to narrow down and attack Luos, because they were the ones that were mostly on the streets, they had sympathizers who had not gone to the street but were also sympathizing with whatever it is that they were doing. People who had not voted for Ruto and wanted President Ruto out. So the president looked at it and said, okay, fine, instead of this war that you have, let us have a dialogue. The first time the president walked in front of State House and said that there's need for dialogue, he said, but the dialogue will be done through parliament, meaning that the minority side and the majority side in parliament would nominate members who would sit down and have discussions. This is something that happened, but for a while, though Rigathi openly opposed this. This is where they differed, because according to Rigathi Gachagua, Raila Odinga had to be crushed once for all. But now having this dialogue, according to Rigathi, was like reviving, giving Raila a new life when they would have finished him once for all. The murmuring then started now. Rigathi was now not this loyal guy who would do anything for the president. He would question certain things, but not openly. Moving into April or May, now you saw the critics of President Ruto now getting positions at Rigathi's office. They were now openly praising Rigathi while criticizing President Ruto. People working in the office of the Deputy President of the Republic were now openly criticizing the President of the Republic while amplifying the good things that Rigathi was doing. And I knew there and then that things were not going to be good, because Rigathi, apart from seeing Raila and Uhuru as his enemies, was now seeing Ruto as one who has betrayed him and the community. Why? William Ruto had not crushed Raila Odinga the way he had promised during elections. He was now giving him some room to reinvent himself through these dialogues, whether they were being done through parliament. Rigathi knew very well that it is Raila who was going to control who was going to be appointed into those dialogues. Fast forward, we are in June of 2023, and Azimio again called for demos, the cost of living demo, where they were putting sufurias on their heads. and demanding that Ruto had failed and Ruto had to go. These were now more violent than the demos that were in March. When I say violent, they were really violent demos. So what happened? Rigathi was still the deputy president. He saw another opportunity to deal with Raila Odinga once for all. And interestingly, President William Ruto was not in the country when these demos were going on. And so Rigathi really did a lot, and he really said a lot. This is not just some assumption. He said what he was doing, and he promised to really deal with Raila once for all. Remember, he said, tumpoeshe kwani yeye ni mtoto. There's no talking. We are not going to meet. We are not going to have any discussions with Raila. Raila then was now calling for dialogue between him and William Ruto so that they can discuss what to do best to make the cost of living go down and other things. I was on the side of Rigathi then because I was of the opinion, and still is, of the opinion that there was no reason why Raila Odinga would go to the street with Luos, knowing very well that this demo stand violent and people are going to lose their life, when he could simply call William Ruto and have a sit down and dialogue. I'm always for the shortest route, not going the longer route when there is a shorter route. If you know very well that dialogue could get you what you want, why take people to the street? Because you know very well the street will be destruction of property and in most cases, unfortunate loss of life. So why do that? Because you can still call Ruto and sit down with him. You can't say that he tried calling Ruto to sit and talk and Ruto said no, so he had to force his hand through demos. No, I don't think so. William Ruto and Raila Odinga are not some enemies. These are people who have worked together before. It was just a matter of Raila picking his call or using the intermediaries and ensuring they had a meeting, the way he did eventually in July. So Rigathi, on the other hand, was like, there will be no talk, there will be nothing. So when Raila, I remember in a certain burial in Nyandarua, I think it is the burial of some Mau Mau legend, of the wife of some Mau Mau legend, and then Raila was in attendance, William Ruto was there, and Rigathi was there. So Rigathi spoke, and Raila also spoke. What Raila said in that meeting is still very fresh in my mind. By that time, William Ruto had given a statement saying enough is enough. And this was misinterpreted by the media to mean people are going to be killed or whatever. Whatever it is, our media. So what happens next? When Raila got up to speak, he said that, William Ruto, I know you. I know you like the back of my hand. And even these threats of enough is enough, I know you. And William Ruto, the president, when he got the chance to speak, by the virtue of being president, he got the chance to speak last. He made it very clear that, Raila Odinga, I also know you. In fact, I know how to end all these demos of yours. And within few days, they were meeting in Mombasa, and the national dialogue at Bomas was formed. This is something that Rigathi saw as a second betrayal. So he didn't like it at all. If you're following me, that is 2023. There are people who think that Rigathi and William Ruto differences began when he was impeached. No. This was a long time ago, because Rigathi was persuaded that as the highest ranking political leader from Mount Kenya, he was the de facto kingpin. And seeing that Uhuru was not willing to retire, that really agitated him. And so he narrowed down on attacking Uhuru. And he did that. And he believed that it is Uhuru that was sponsoring Raila to cause chaos. And so he would say it plainly that Uhuru is the one sponsoring Raila and all this chaos. So he narrowed down on dealing with Uhuru Kenyatta and his project, as he said, Raila Odinga. He expected Ruto to endorse his approach, which it appears Ruto did not, in March as well as in July. So in these two cases, Rigathi felt betrayed. But it was not just Rigathi who felt betrayed, ladies and gentlemen. Immediately, the national dialogue at Bomas began, we now officially lost the Kikuyus, because then they sensed that this is just a way of bringing Raila into government. And remember, they left their son Uhuru Kenyatta for the crime of bringing Raila Odinga and Luos into government. And to imagine that the person they voted for and made president literally was now doing the same thing, stabbing them in the back by bringing Raila on board. I shared with you the circumstances under which William Ruto brought Raila on board. It was not an easy decision. It was not as if this is what he wanted all along. No. William Ruto had been very categorical. The president had made it that he did not like a mongrel where the opposition and the government were one thing. But then there is what we call the ideal situation and the reality. And when reality hit him, that the country was so divided, and Raila Odinga was taking advantage of that and making it very difficult for him to make steps forward, considering the economy was really struggling then. So he needed an environment of tranquility to actually resuscitate the economy and do a few development here and there. And that was not going to happen if there were demos here and out there. So he sat down with Raila, they had a dialogue, they talked. Raila made some demands of maybe what he wanted. And Rigathi told us, we were not in that meeting, Rigathi was in that meeting. And as you know, Rigathi doesn't keep any secret. So he would go everywhere and say, huyu mzee came and he was asking for ministers, we told him no. The mzee came and he was asking for PSS, we told him no. The mzee came and he was asking for positions of for ambassadorial positions, and we told him there is nothing like that. The mzee asked us to give him money to reimburse him for the campaign, and we said we will see what to do. So Rigathi is the one who used to tell us that. You remember when he used to mock Ichung'wa and Aaron Cheriot, asking them if they had nothing to do, that they would waste their time in that so-called national dialogue at Bomas. Rigathi openly had now differed with William Ruto. At that time, remember, his team, the communication team that he now brought in, were people who were openly criticizing President Ruto and celebrating Rigathi Gachagua. And Rigathi was now openly, unlike in March, in around June and July, Rigathi was now openly criticizing what the President of the Republic has already endorsed. The President had said, for the sake of peace, for us to have a country, to have an environment where we can develop the country, let us hear what proposals Raila's team has. Now, you are in July of 2023. The deputy president has openly now disagreed with his boss. Why? He has learned that the Kikuyu masses are also starting to murmur, because the Kikuyu masses saw this dialogue, like I told you, as a way, a scheme to rehabilitate Raila and even eventually bring him into government, something that they would not accept, because it would be, according to them, a betrayal of monumentous proportion. So Rigathi saw an opportunity. Remember his ambition, being the kingpin of the region. And the obstacle was Uhuru, and maybe people were still seeing Ruto as their leader from that region, and he was not being taken seriously. Now he had an opportunity. The opportunity was now to echo the things that people were saying in low tones, the things against Raila, against this dialogue, and of course against William Ruto. Subtly though, forgive me for this history, because it is important we understand how we found ourselves where we are today. And some people don't understand Rigathi's journey. And so you might end up judging somebody very unfairly. I am telling you that moving into 2024, Rigathi now had started speaking out of turns. He would now openly criticize what the president was doing. We would now start having issues here and there, just complaints, one complaint over the other. And of course, his team was now openly anti-Ruto, opposing Ruto and criticizing Ruto. Then there was this time he met with Kalonzo in a certain church in Kiambu. And it was like, Kambas are our brothers, etc. This is before the June demos, by the way. Kambas are our brothers, we are what. And people started looking at Why would Kalonzo Musyoka be friendly with Rigathi Gachagua? And why would Rigathi Gachagua be speaking of 2027? We can work together. You are our true friends. What's going on here? We have Limuru 3. In that Limuru 3, ladies and gentlemen, I would urge you to go and review the video. In that Limuru 3, the decision was that they are going to use their sons to remove William Ruto from power. Rigathi did not speak against the Limuru 3. It was even said that he was one of the people who organized and sponsored it. And from there, ladies and gentlemen, we had the June 25th demos where parliament was banned, judiciary was vandalized, and they were threatening to march to State House, to the point that the military had to be brought to the street. It was that bad. The intention was, I cannot allow Raila Odinga and William Ruto to work together. And I know my people also cannot allow that. So what we do, we hide behind the finance bill, which remember Rigathi was supporting before. We hide behind that finance bill to cause anarchy. Through this anarchy, we can succeed. And if possible, they were going to go to State House and we remove William Ruto and install Rigathi Gachagua. That did not happen, ladies and gentlemen. But even though they did not succeed, they gave Rigathi an opportunity. Because now Rigathi could now tell Kikuyus that he is against William Ruto because William Ruto has killed Kikuyu kids, peaceful Kikuyu children who were just on the street with their phone and handkerchief. Because it was difficult for both Rigathi and the Kikuyu masses to just say we cannot be with Ruto because he has brought Raila, he has refused to crush Raila. So now they had a reason. Even though their attempted coup failed miserably, they now had a reason to hate Ruto, something to hide behind. Ruto killed our kids. That is what you go to Mwea, or you go to Chinga, or you sit somewhere in Thika, you will be told that that person, we are against him because he killed our kids. You will be told that. So now they have a reason to hate Ruto. Ruto is a murderer who killed their kids. It's a wonderful thing to hide behind. Nobody is now bothered with why were these people on the street? What were they doing there? Who mobilized them? No. Nobody is talking about the Limuru Declaration, where they openly said that when your kids ask you for fare to go to Nairobi, give them because we are going to liberate the country. But we know, those who know politics, you know very well that Kikuyus were going to leave if you bring Raila on board. Ruto is a smart politician. He read the ground and he saw that the Kikuyus were gone because of the issue of Raila and they were hiding behind the Gen Z thing. So what did he do? He told Raila, okay, whatever it is that you were requesting earlier, can we work together? Raila said, okay, I'm not going back to the street. I'm of the opinion that we go the dialogue route. And so Rigathi was against this. This is something that the Kikuyus did not like openly. And Rigathi saw the opportunity just growing bigger for him to be the kingpin of North Kenya. So what did he do? He started now to do Meet the People tour. In this Meet the People tour, Rigathi would say, and I quote, Ruto is planning very dangerous things for our community. There are dark days ahead for our community. You see, when somebody comes and tells you this, and that person is none other than the Deputy President of the Republic who sits at the National Security Council, you don't have any reason not to believe it. Not at all. You don't have any reason not to believe it. You will believe the Deputy President of the Republic when he comes and tells you that Ruto is planning to destroy our community. And majority of Kikuyu started believing it, that Ruto is trying to destroy the community. And so he said so many things. Ruto is planning this, Ruto is planning so many things that painted William Ruto as a serious evil person that the Kikuyus put to power, and now he is planning to destroy them. The hatred grew among typical Kikuyus. And Rigathi saw that his plan was working. If he now echoed this and he added as much lies as he could, because he knew one thing, the president is not going to be responding to Rigathi Gachagua every now and then. so that if Rigathi Gachagua says that President Ruto is the one that is arming militias in Sudan, then President Ruto releases no, you can't, because that means you will be releasing clarifications every day, because Rigathi is good at saying this. Remember, I told you what he said about Uhuru Kenyatta. He picked him from the bar, cleaned him, and made him president. Of course, that is not true. Everybody knows that. But he knows how to put these things in a way that they look so convincing. And when he said that, when he went and openly said that, don't kill me the way your father killed so and so, you see, that is a serious allegation. But he was saying it with the conviction of a judge. You would think Rigathi was present when the assassination was being planned. Assassination of J.M. Kariuki was being planned. And so when he started speaking against Ruto and spewing lies upon lies, it was now a wise move for the president not to engage, because if you are now going to respond to every allegation Rigathi makes, and remember, there is a media that is anti-president. I even did a video and shared with you why the media was anti-Ruto even before he was elected. So you have a media that is echoing anything that is anti-Ruto and giving Rigathi Gachagua platform upon platform. Even before he was impeached, you would see him on interview after interview saying so many things against President Ruto, making his boss look so bad that you would wonder, how are these people even working together to begin with? Remember, his belief was that he could not be impeached because no Kikuyu MP was going to dare vote against him, considering he was now the kingpin of Mount Kenya. But of course, he was impeached. Like I told you, he has one weakness. He overestimates his value. He believes he has hubris, where he's persuaded is somebody so important, when in actual sense he's not that very important. But I digress. He goes now to Mount Kenya and he sees what he has always desired, to be like Raila Odinga. You see, Raila Odinga literally controls Luo Nyanza. It is not ideal, it is real. And here we deal with reality, even if it is not very palatable. Raila Odinga controls Luo Nyanza. How did they reach that level? They used something called siege mentality. They created a siege mentality in Luo Nyanza, where they painted Luo Nyanza, Luo people, as a special group of Kenyans that people are jealous of and would want to destroy. So the Odingas, are the only people who were standing between the total annihilation of Luos. And for that reason, Luos felt they owed him loyalty. That is what Rigathi Gachagua is doing in Mount Kenya. Rigathi Gachagua is inciting Kikuyus not just against William Ruto. No. Saying William Ruto is planning to kill us, William Ruto is planning to do this to our family, to our community. That is just him trying to make his personal differences with Ruto a community issue, which works so well if you want to create siege mentality. You must make personal issues become a community issue. So if you differ with Ruto, it means the entire Kikuyu community has also differed with Ruto. Because without that, you are not going to create siege mentality. Remember, Rigathi also has a problem that the leaders, elected leaders, are not with him. They are opposed to Rigathi Gachagua, and they don't care whether they are going to lose their seats. They don't care. They are like, this is a very bad man that we cannot support, no matter the consequences. But he's lucky because he has a very ready audience. I told you the Kikuyus had already left Ruto. They were just looking for somebody to justify why they left and also to speak for them. And Rigathi offered himself. So Rigathi is seeing that the best way is going to achieve his ambition, the best way is going to get what he has always desired, being the Raila of Mount Kenya, okay, is to now not just incite the community against Ruto. No. It is now to incite the community against other communities. When Rigathi says that goons were hired to destroy Kikuyu property in Nairobi, I quote him that the goons went and marked Kikuyu businesses, those that belong to Kikuyus, Embu and Meru in Nairobi, for destruction on the demonstration day. Do you know which goons he's referring to? Because he's saying their sons, I'm also still just quoting him, he's saying their sons, the Kikuyus, cannot get involved in destroying people's property. You know which goons he's referring to? Your guess is as good as mine. He's making the Kikuyus feel like they are this special group of people who are being targeted by other communities, and Ruto, now using the police, is aiding these people against the Kikuyu community. And for that reason, the only way Kikuyu nation is going to survive moving forward is if they hide behind Rigathi Gachagua. That is what Rigathi Gachagua is trying to achieve. What I told you is called siege mentality, where people, a community, feels like without a specific leader, there is no future for them. And most people, even today, the so-called Gen Zs, they are persuaded that the only reason why William Ruto has not destroyed Kikuyus completely is because of Rigathi Gachagua. Rigathi is fighting for us. He is standing in the gap to make sure that we are not destroyed, because we are very special. People hate us. They want to destroy us, but there's this good man who is sacrificing his all, risking his life to protect us, the man Rigathi Gachagua. And once that siege mentality happens, Rigathi Gachagua will be controlling Mount Kenya the way Raila controls Nyanza. It will be like, if you want anything in Mount Kenya, you will have to go past Rigathi Gachagua. You will have to go through Rigathi Gachagua. Rigathi Gachagua will be the one deciding who becomes governor, who becomes MCA. He would be the one calling shots in Mount Kenya as a region. And that will make him a very powerful person. And Rigathi doesn't care how he gets there, even if it means he has to incite people against members of his own community. Because you see, when somebody of Rigathi's caliber uses the funeral of his aunt to really say very nasty things about other leaders, or we have evidence that this leader and this leader are meeting here to destroy our property tomorrow. Oh, we have evidence William Ruto is really planning to harm us. Guys, the days ahead of us are very dark. And this aunt of mine told me that William Ruto is a very evil man. I didn't listen. So you see, when somebody can do that, can lower himself to those extreme levels, can stoop down to that level where you use the funeral of somebody you claim is dear to you to play very petty politics, very tribal politics, inciting an entire community against everyone else, making them look like they are endangered, that there is a plan to destroy them. Trust me, most of the Kikuyus bought into those nonsense. And because they bought into those nonsense, I can tell you, if Rigathi Gachagua told them that going to the street is the only way that is going to keep them safe, you will see them on the street today, tomorrow. They will use any other excuse to go to the street, to cause chaos. After all, now, even if they loot, the same goods, the same Kikuyus, even if they looted today, Rigathi has already blamed some mysterious goons from somewhere who are organized by the state to destroy Kikuyu's property. So with that, Rigathi can now use these youths, incite them, go and ban this hotel. It belongs to this MP. They will ban that hotel. Then they will just say, Kikuyus can't do that. These are goons from outside brought by William Ruto to paint us in negative light. Remember, I told you William Ruto is against our community. He wants to paint us as very bad people. We have never been involved in destruction of property. So whoever is destroying property in Nyeri, whoever is destroying property in Nyandarua or Meru or Embu, that person is not from there. There are people who have been ferried from somewhere and brought there by government and have the protection of the police to destroy Kikuyu property. That means these people can be on the streets tomorrow. They can destroy property. And once they do that, every Kikuyu whose property would be destroyed, or every Kenyan whose property would be destroyed, will look at Ruto as a president who organizes goons to destroy property So Rigathi doesn't care. What I'm telling you is he doesn't care whether this incitement is going to lead to death of his people. For him, the end justifies the means. As long as he is going to be the kingpin of Mount Kenya, he doesn't care what he does to the Kikuyu community in the process. And this is what he is doing to the Kikuyu community. Whereas other tribes are also spread across the country, no community comes even closer to how Kikuyus are spread across the country. If you go to my hometown, I'm telling you, you will find Kikuyus there doing business and running huge shops. So Kikuyus are everywhere in the country, and it is legal. That is how the Constitution gives you freedom of movement, and you can live wherever you want. The people who think that if you have this particular community living in your area, then they should be your political slaves or reason the way you do. That is archaic. However, when you make everything about Kikuyu and you start inciting them against every other Kenyan, because you incite them against Ruto, Mara, you have, within some minutes, you have a list of Kalenjins who are killing Kikuyus in the police force. And at very funny things. You are inciting them against their Kalenjin neighbors. You are inciting Kikuyus against their Luo neighbors and friends, and against everybody in the country. That has one big problem. It is the nonsense that happened in 2007. Currently, Rigathi is trying to make it look like the entire country is against us and we must be careful. We must treat everybody with suspicion. What if the entire country also starts treating them with suspicion? That is why I'm saying the enemy of a Kikuyu today is none other than Rigathi Gachagua. Because what he is doing, he is profiling a community that needs peace for survival, but is radicalizing this community, is making them believe that they can be chaotic, that they can destroy things until Ruto leaves office. They are being told that we fought the Mkoloni until he reigned, and Ruto is nobody. We will fight Ruto until Ruto runs. That is the thing. That is what they are saying there. And so when you incite the Kikuyus, when you make this revolution a Kikuyu affair the way it is now, that it is the Kikuyus that are rebelling, forget these instances where they rope in a few Luos here and there to make it look national. It's not. Kikuyus now are the ones that are fighting the government. Don't you think that you are profiling your community for no reason? And ladies and gentlemen, I know that those who support Rigathi Gachagua would look at this video and say, what is this? This is sponsored propaganda, etc. I have given you systematically how things worked because I have been in that system. I have told you how things worked there until where we are. Now Rigathi can say anything to make Ruto look bad. He can say anything to make Sakaja look bad. He can say anything. The intention here is to say anything that makes Kikuyus cling around him, for run to him for safety. That is the only guy who can protect them. I think that is a very bad move. And unless Kikuyus stop him, unfortunately, they will not just end as Luo Nyanza where Raila calls the shots. Rigathi will call shots, but because he's reckless, unlike Raila Odinga, Rigathi is a very reckless human being in terms of what he says and in terms of his actions. He is going to make life very difficult for other Kikuyus, especially the ones who don't live with him in Madeira. And I'm not creating this. The Kikuyus in Nakuru called a press conference and spoke. The ones in Lamu, the lady in Lamu told Rigathi to his face, this issue of Kikuyu this, Kikuyu that, you are putting us in danger. That is the elected women rep of Lamu was very categorical. So the people who are outside Madeira, who are outside Mwea or Kiambu, they know that living with your neighbors, it doesn't mean that you have to vote the same way, but it means that you do not have to be very antagonistic, that you make everything about yourself. But that is what Rigathi is doing. He's profiling a community for what? Just to be a kingpin. That's why I say the enemy of the Kikuyu today is none other than Rigathi Gachagua. If you found value in this video, let me know in the comment section. If you differ, let us have a discussion. Otherwise, like the video, share it. And if you want to know one thing that is going to bring Rigathi down, watch this video.